Welcome to the Jeremiah Show. So, Santa Barbara is a town that holds many jewels. One that sparkles brightest is its musicians. Santa Barbara is home to many of your favorite artists, from Kenny Loggins, Glenn Phillips of Toad the Wet Sprocket, Spencer the Gardener, the Tearaways. And Santa Barbara was even home once to David Crosby, and we miss you, David. Jack Johnson, Lois Mahalia, Michael McDonald, and Jeff Bridges all perform and live here. Chris Hillman of the Byrds is very close by. And one name that comes up often in the musical scene in Santa Barbara is my special guest today, Christian Love. His name is always spoken with high regard, with the ultimate respect, and with a tinge of awe. He's the son of American music royalty Mike Love of the Beach Boys, but that is not the reason why musicians and fans whisper his name. Christian is a musician's musician, a student of the craft, the real thing. His music trips the wires, jumps at you from his guitar, and electrifies his audience. His chords are alive. His progressions rattle your soul. He's a master of lyrics, and his vocals are your internal anthems. I have a list. It's not a long list, but it's a good list. And you could call it a wish list of sorts. The list consists of guests that I want to interview. But the list hardly ever goes down because I think if I reach out to them, they may not agree. And so it's a scary list in a way. My aversion to rejection, just like you, is strong. Every so often, when I feel confident, I pull a name off the list and I go through the tedious task of finding the person's management or their public relations person and inviting them on the show for an interview. On that list right now is Christian Love. Christian has sat near the top of my list since 2018. I put him there. And now he is here. And now I will cross him off my list, but only after I thoroughly enjoy that he was here. Welcome, Christian.
I feel honored, Jeremiah. Thank you so much for the kind words.
That was what I did want to tell you before we got started on the show here is that I've had you. I wish I could show you my screen. I've got this checklist, and you're right at the top. And I put you there a long time ago, and I don't know why it took so long for me to work up the confidence to get you on the show. But I'm so happy that you're here. It really is a true honor, and everything I said in the beginning, your name comes up so often with musician friends of mine and fans of yours that just speak in awe of you, and they say how great you are as a person and great as a musician. So it's rare that I hear so much about a person before I've actually met them, I congratulate you on the really good um, word out there on the street about you.
Oh, thanks so much. And what a wealth of talent here in Santa Barbara with so many great people too, to so many great bands in the 90s growing up, and just it's just a great little musical scene around here.
Yeah. So did you grow up? That's sort of my first topic because you are the first, I'd say the first really well-known musician that I've talked to that lives in Santa Barbara. I had Michael McDonald's been on a few other people, but it I would love to get your perspective on Santa Barbara as a musician. So you grew up here in Santa Barbara, is that right?
Yeah, yeah. I started a band in the early 90s, and I think I was, probably 20, 21, something like that. And me and a couple friends who were just basically starting to learn how to play our instruments. We just kind of learned as we went along and started writing some songs together. But Jason Boaz, Thomas Skinner, and we created a band called Alex's Cane, and it was kind of like almost like a Police sort of power trio.
And the Police, from what I was talking to someone that knows you, they're one of your influences. Is that Is
It's a
that right?
pretty, yeah, early on, it was a pretty major influence for me. Yeah, I would say.
So you grew up in Santa Barbara, and when I was a kid, I grew up on the Mesa.
Yeah,
And we would ride skateboards and ride over to the Douglas. It's now the Douglas Preserve, but it was called the Wilcox property. And
yeah.
for those of you that are outside of Santa Barbara, it's just beautiful, pristine property that overlooks the Pacific Ocean. And I don't know how many acres it is, but it's just beautiful. But at the entrance of the Wilcox or the Douglas Preserve are these wood, I don't know how you describe them, kind of like condos or homes, and it's a bunch of them right at the entrance to the Douglas Preserve or Wilcox. And we would ride our bikes up there, and it was rumored that the Beach Boys lived there. So in my mind, it was all of the Beach Boys lived there, but I don't think it was all of them. I think was it your family that lived there?
Yeah, yeah, it was my dad. My dad owned the property, and I think when I was, yeah, 5 years old, we were living in Manhattan Beach before that. We shot up to Santa Barbara, and I'm like, wow, this is a magical place. And it turns out that this property that we grew up on was a girls' boarding school back in the day.
Okay.
So, and yeah, so my dad wasn't there that often. He was pretty busy touring, but yeah, that's where I grew up and had a good core group of friends and went
Yeah.
surfing, the whole deal.
So were you a Mesa rat?
I was a Mesa rat. Yeah, definitely
So
guilty as charged there.
guilty. Yeah.
Mhm.
You don't have to give any details. I was just wondering. So
Yeah,
again, for the listeners that are outside of our area, the Mesa is this great plateau overlooking the Pacific Ocean, right? And you're actually at Shoreline Park right now
I
for
I
the
am
people that
on
are
the
watching
Mesa.
on
Yeah,
YouTube.
this is the
Yeah,
Mesa. Yeah, it's beautiful.
Shoreline Park. So Mesa Rats was like a somewhat wasn't a gang, but it was like if you lived on the Mesa, you were a Mesa rat. I mean, you wanted to be a Mesa rat. And then
Yeah,
yeah, Montecito, which is our next
Cedo
door,
rats. Yeah, you
you're
had Cedo
Cedo rats.
rats.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So uh that's a funny time. So well, what is Santa Barbara like to you as a musician? I mean, we all hear these stories or we've seen these documentaries on Laurel Canyon and what
Mhm.
happened up in the canyons. And I kind of compare the Riviera in Santa Barbara and the music scene here to that a little bit. Do you think it could, do you think one day Santa Barbara will have that type of notoriety as a musician? Like, what makes it so unique as a musician here? And why do you think, besides it being beautiful, so many people live here and come here that are musicians?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm not really sure what the attraction was to having so many great bands come out of the early '90s, Santa Barbara. It just sort of happened, and
Could you name a couple of them for us that
yeah,
you
Toad the
think of?
Wet Sprocket,
Yeah,
Dishwalla,
yeah.
the Ataris were playing, Spencer the Gardener. I mean, there were so many different types of music, and you could just go out and see someone different, almost every night of the week. It was amazing. That's what we used to do as kids. We used to go watch bands play. I don't think it's as prevalent these days, but yeah, it was a magical time for music, and that's what inspired me to create my own band. I was just inspired by all these great artists that lived around here.
So Alex is Kane. That was your first band, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. And where would you guys play? I mean, the great thing about Santa Barbara is Isla Vista. We've got these five colleges, right? You got UCSB. Would you guys
yeah,
play out at the parties at IV, backyard?
yeah,
What
yeah.
was
We,
that like?
in fact, I have some old footage of us playing at a frat party in Isla Vista. It's pretty cool. Um, but I think our first gig was actually at Fiesta. We and we're like, oh, we better learn how to play our instruments because we were pretty green, especially myself. I was just pretty new to playing the bass, which was my instrument back in the day. And I think we had like 3 weeks to prepare for this Fiesta gig, and we're playing on the big stage, our first gig. And
And like Delavina Square there or
yeah,
for
yeah, De La
Fiesta?
Guerra
Oh wow.
Plaza, yeah,
Delegara, yeah.
yep.
Oh, that's awesome. But you guys opened for some and toured and played with some pretty big bands like Matchbox 20.
Yeah.
I used to love watching Dave Wakeling and the English Beat here. They
Yeah.
were Santa Barbara and hit all the clubs. How would you describe the music scene? Is there a scene or is there I don't know, it's like a Seattle grunge or LA rockers or there's these different kind of stigmas that go with some of these cities that turn out these great musicians. What do you think our sound is, or Santa Barbara's sound and the scene?
You know, Santa Barbara seems to lend itself to reggae a lot. So we
Yeah.
get these reggae bands coming up out of here. And I think it's just the climate and the atmosphere, the beach and all that stuff kind of naturally lends itself towards reggae music. So we've had some pretty good reggae bands come out of here. So I think and there was a band called Common Sense. I don't know if you remember.
Yes, I love Common Sense.
What a band, man. They were just
Oh, I
so great.
forgot about them.
Great reggae band and a mixture of covers and originals. And yeah, I just remember being impressed by them back in the day.
So you learned how to play guitar, and so you start, and how did that Fiesta show go, by the way? How did it turn out?
Well, actually, yeah, I taught myself. Actually, our guitarist, he moved the guitar. He gave me a Steinberg bass to use. And I learned how to play the bass. It was, it took me a while to get decent at it, but we threw some, fun danceable songs together, and yeah, the crowd was up and dancing, and we just couldn't believe it. We were just blown away by the turnout and how everything went. It was great. A little nervous, but
Yeah, I bet. I would be too. But then did you start, jumping in on other bands and I start playing with other people, or how did your band do? Was it all full bore ahead and you
yeah,
got
yeah,
other?
we went probably 4 years or so with Alexis Kane. Actually, it might have even gone longer, but we our guitarist ended up moving to New York, Thomas Skinner, and then we picked up a guy named Dan Brown and continued with Alexis Kane for a bit, and then eventually we met we met a guy named Cliff Castello, a good buddy of mine, and he started playing guitar with us as well. So then we all of a sudden we had two guitars, and we were a four piece, and yeah, we would get gigs downtown. It was a lot of fun. It was a good time for us. And then Five Alarm was the band that we opened up for Dave Wakeling and Matchbox 20 and stuff like that.
Hmm. All right, well, let's take a quick break here, and come back and talk about the Beach Boys and when you joined the Beach Boys band, and what's next for you. We're gonna go out right now with your song "Touchdown" in New Amsterdam. Amsterdam, excuse me. It's on the Only Alibis album, which, by the way, man, that album is really, really good. I mean, is there a bad song on there? I don't think so. Is there a song? I mean, it's really good. And I
Oh,
would
thanks, Jeremiah.
encourage everybody to go pick that up. Only Alibis album. And go to Spotify also and follow and put Christian Love on your playlist. You can also go to Christian Love official website, which is christianloveofficial.org. On Instagram and Facebook, follow Christian at Christian Love Official. Same for both. And Star, it's the newest single. It's going to be coming up at the end of the show. We're going to play it in its entirety. We're also playing a lot of music off of Only Alibis album. Again, here's Touchdown in New Amsterdam. Christian, do you want to set up the song for us?
Yeah, this one's called Touchdown in New Amsterdam, and it's about being hungover and thinking about your lady.
Perfect setup. Enjoy the song. We'll be right back.